Hey everybody, welcome back to another full self-driving beta video. My name is John and I live in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I love to document the progress of full self-driving beta as it moves through the iterations. I'm waiting for 11.4.7 to come out. I am on 11.4.6, the latest version of full self-driving beta. I'm testing it here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I'm particularly driving around Hoffman Estates, Schaumburg area. I'm actually really close to the Tesla dealer or the Tesla service center here in this area. I'm leaving my gym. I'm heading over to Asia Noodle House, and then I'm taking it over to this Euro restaurant, and then over to a library, and then to Wendy's, and then over to Walgreens. So several destinations that are dialed in. Here I come up to this intersection. I'm not sure if there's a no turn on red sign or not, but a police vehicle pulls up right in front of me. My car indicates that it's going to start to go here, so I disengage. I get nervous thinking there may be a no turn on red sign that I may have missed because my car is too far forward and I can't see any signs. So I do take over here and wait for the light to turn green. So this takes quite a bit of time. I will say this content here is brand new. I got a new mount for my car. My camera now is very far back. I have a GoPro 7. It's a GoPro Hero Black. And this camera has a hyper smooth stabilization algorithm built into it. But every time I enable it, it has write errors to the SD card. It took me a really long time to figure that part out. Also, I had issues with one of my batteries that created a lot of problems where the screen would just go black, and I wasn't sure, the audio would still get recorded, but I had no video content. Very frustrating. I had several videos I had to delete because of that. And I will say that I've put probably 24 plus hours into editing various videos over the past week, and I've had to delete all of them. They all went into the trash bin. Unfortunately, I am my worst critic when it comes to my content, and even this I'm not very satisfied with because the hypersmooth acceleration or hypersmooth stabilization, is not working the way that I intend. And I had to do software stabilization, which means I had to zoom in quite considerably, so I'm losing a lot of the field of view. But I do like this setup a lot better, and if I can get a new camera, if I can justify the expense, then I think that my content will improve significantly in the future. So my videos are starting to look a lot more like AI drivers, and my intent here is not to compete with him, but rather to satisfy my own craving for producing more high quality content to increase the value of my videos here. You can see the police vehicle there. They just went to the right, and I'm like, yes, finally, I don't need to worry about any police vehicles. He was actually looking at his screen in his car, so I was really worried that he was looking up my plate. He probably was, because my camera stands out. Everybody sees it. I get a lot of looks. It's very, you kind of feel like a celebrity. In some ways, it's kind of nice because you're like, hey, you're drawing a lot of attention to yourself. Now, I've never been the type of person that wants attention, but every so often it is kind of nice to have people looking at you. Now, of course, that's not the purpose of having the camera back there, but it does draw a lot of eyes. So I'm at this intersection waiting for light to turn green. I have been communicating quite a bit recently with AI Driver over Twitter or X chat. And through direct messaging him, he's been extremely helpful in providing some information on how he does his videos, and he's provided some tips and tricks to me and just been extremely helpful. Unbelievably friendly person. I absolutely love collaborating and communicating with him. So I look forward to continuing conversations with him in the future. But here you can see I'm turning right on this road. At first I was thrown off because it looked like this lane was going to be pushing me over to the left, but the car knew very intelligently that it needed to turn right here, and it stayed all the way over to the right. So here we're going into the right lane and then immediately turning right into this parking lot to the first destination, which is this Asian Noodle House. After this Asian Noodle House, I do have a destination dialed in for a Euro's restaurant. A lot of people think it's pronounced gyros, but it's actually euros, and they're very popular up in Chicago area. This place that I'm taking us next is really nice for euros, and I absolutely love it. It's called, oh gosh, so my screen's a little bit blurred down at the bottom. I can't remember the exact name, but it's like Home of the Euros. It's right off Gulf Road. It's really close to the Tesla dealer or the service center. It's one of my favorite places. All they do is euros, and they're really, really good. So anyway, I'm taking it over to this Euro restaurant, then over to the library, and then from there over to Wendy's, and then from Wendy's to Walgreens. That's my route here, and I end up changing the route halfway through so I can get a really nice unprotected left, which it crushes, and I have not had any issues with unprotected lefts recently. I have had a lot of other issues, and these issues have resided throughout all of these versions of beta, and this has been one of my main problems with beta, is it just really doesn't improve at the rate that I would expect it to improve, even despite a lot of extra feedback. I've been driving with this for over 2 years, and a lot of the feedback just does not make it over to Tesla. Well, I think it is making it back to Tesla, but it's just not being accounted for, or it's not being used. And I can appreciate that, because you can't just hard code a change and have it apply to all different areas. These neural nets are intended to operate after immense amounts of training, and there's tons of video feedback. It takes a lot of time. You can't expect this stuff to change overnight. Then again, I tend to believe that it will change overnight. Once the training data really hits home and you get the same feedback coming from multiple areas, and the feedback lines up, I think then at that point you're going to start seeing a lot of amazing changes taking place. So here it did a really nice job getting out. Again, this is a tricky environment with this road, multiple lanes, a lot of traffic. I'm driving on Higgins Road and Gulf Road primarily, up in Schaumburg, Hoffman Estates area. We are in the left turn lane waiting here, and the light is red, so I'm just going to fast forward through this and then turn left. All right, so here we go. So I just remembered the name of that Euros restaurant, which we're heading to here next. It's called Brandy's Euros. As soon as I turn left here, I get the takeover immediately steering wheel, and really frustrating. I wasn't sure why it did that. No clue. Every so often that'll happen. So I had to disengage and proceed forward from there. And in coming up here, we need to turn right onto Gulf Road, and we don't have much time left before we need to get into the right turn lane. So this makes me anxious. This happens, from time to time. So especially in this case, I had to disengage. So I can't really say that this, is really Beta's fault completely, because I re-engaged and there's just not enough time here. But it does do a good job. It gets over, and then it gets over again. The second lane change didn't have any turn signal, but it did get over, and thankfully we got lucky with the traffic pattern. Turning right here. Now watch this. This is fascinating. So it gets all the way over to the left because it needs to turn into the parking lot, and the parking lot's coming up here pretty quickly. And then you see that car in the median? That's where we need to go. That's exactly where we need to go. So the car is slowing down. I'm looking behind me. There's nobody behind me, so I let it slow down. But normally you would never slow down here. It's a 45 mile per hour road. You would get honked at really quickly. But I'm letting it do this, and it comes here, and it's going to, I don't know what it's thinking, but it almost hits this car. I did have to disengage there. Really disappointing to me that it thought it could move into that car. I don't know what it was thinking. I mean, it was trying to get out of the road, or sometimes Beta really disappoints. I will be honest with you. So it comes into this area here. Well, I'm driving manually, so I took over completely at this point. And I'm keeping an eye on my selfie stick, or the big pole that's jutting out behind me. It does draw quite a bit of attention, as I mentioned. so I'm always keeping an eye on it here to make sure it's not falling off. I'm not used to having this massive stick hanging off the back of my car, so I'm very nervous or anxious that it's going to pop off or break, especially if I go over a big bump or something. But at this point, I remove the destination, this Brandy's Euros, and I am still driving manually to get out of this parking lot. Now, this car here on the left, they gave me a hand signal to go. Like I said, I'm driving manually, so I took their cue and drove up here. And then right here, the great thing about Beta is you can turn it on almost anywhere. So I turn it on, and now I'm waiting for the car to turn right. The right turn signal turned on automatically. I didn't do anything there. The car turned it on all by itself, and I'm waiting now to go out. And there's quite a bit of traffic coming. So since the visibility is so poor here with my camera, I don't have a 360 camera. I pull out my iPhone here and I film the traffic on the left. It takes me a little while. It's quite a bit of cars coming here, but as soon as the feed jumps into place here, you'll see it show up. So I did want to capture kind of what was happening here, just so you could understand the traffic and the decision that Beta was trying to make. Because, you know, as a human driver, you can look with your really easily. You can turn your head and look. Now the camera, I'm not sure how well it can see compared to the human head, but it did a decent job here. It waited. It always makes me nervous. My foot is hovering over the brake pedal because I never know what it can or cannot see, but it did a decent job there. So coming forward here, we're going through this light, and then we are going to be turning right coming up. So we've got a little bit of distance. So I did do kind of a 3D keyer here on the bottom to show the visualizations. What it's not showing is the speed limit or the details about the destination. In other words, you know, how many feet we have before we need to turn right. But I'm going to work on that setup for future videos. So I appreciate everybody's patience as I try to fine-tune this new setup with my camera and the visualizations. I really would like to do an augmented reality style video, and I've been experimenting quite a bit with that, and that's been delaying the release of several videos of mine. And I finally made a decision that I'm just going to go with what I've done before, maybe modify it a little bit, but I hope you can appreciate this new long pole setup that kind of gives the Grand Theft Auto effect with the cars. But I'm waiting at this light, quite a few long lights here that I'll just fast forward through. Okay, so we proceed forward here, and it's asking me to put some force on the steering wheel, and you can see the blue tentacle, which means that it's following this path straight down the road. And I'm wondering, you know, when is it going to get into the right turn lane? It takes its time. You can see there's the Tesla dealer, or I always call it a dealer, but it's not technically a dealer. It's a Tesla service center. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can't call them dealers, especially in states that don't allow you to sell vehicles online, like in Michigan. In Illinois, maybe you can safely call it a dealer. I'm not sure, but finally here it indicates that it needs to get over to the right. It does a good job getting over. The gap wasn't that large, but it did get over at an appropriate time. So we are on Gulf Road, and now here's the intersection between Gulf and Higgins. So it's going on to Higgins Road and turning right. And going forward here, we're heading over to the Hoffman Estates Library off of Hassel Road. And as I'm heading to this next destination, I do delete the waypoint so that I can have it come back to my home address so that it can do an unprotected left, which is a very difficult left turn on these busy roads around this time. So this is shortly after rush hour. I want to say this is around 6:30, 7 o'clock p.m. when I'm driving around here. And this was filmed on Monday, August 21st. All right, so the car takes off here again and Going through this intersection, no problem. We are up in front, and I am in the far right lane, so I'm not worried about slowing down any traffic, because technically when you're in the far right lane, you can go as slow as you want. People can just go around you on the left, but it changes lanes here. So coming up in about a mile, or maybe a little bit less, we need to get over to the right to turn right. So this lane change threw me off a little bit. I was not expecting it to change lanes. But as you'll see here, the right lane does end. I kind of doubt that Beta knew that it was ending, but watch here. There was a sign right there that just showed that it's ending. That lane is ending. So it turns into kind of a right turn only lane there, and then completely ends. But, I probably would not, if I was driving myself, I probably would have stayed in the far right lane and allowed that merge to kind of push me over. But all in all, I can't really complain about that lane selection. Coming forward here, so I was a little bit nervous when I was driving here with the sun. The sun is shining directly into my windshield, but my GoPro does a decent job kind of compensating for the sunlight, and the video footage turned out really decently. Now, turning right here, look at this. It gets all the way over into this crazy area, and not what I would have done. And then right here, you can turn right on red. There's no sign saying you can't. Not that Beta can read those signs anyway, but I'm a little bit spaced away from the car behind me, and I kept checking in my rearview mirror. They did not have the right turn signal on, so I wasn't too worried about my car waiting. Sure enough, they did turn right, so they were waiting for me. My car probably could have gone a lot sooner, but I chose to wait it out, and Beta just waited for the light to turn green. So coming through here, this road is a bit windy. It does a decent job. And again, I'm not very pleased with the result of this stabilization algorithm that my software is providing. It kind of jerks around, but I'll tell you, if I don't have this turned on, it's a lot worse. Trust me. So I need to get a new camera. And again, I need to justify that cost. It's between $300 to $500 to get a new camera. Unfortunately, I make pennies on the dollar with my YouTube channel, so I can't justify significant new purchases. As much as I would love to be able to splurge and spend a whole bunch of money on extra equipment, I have a limited income, and I have to be true to myself here with saving money. So it's a real tough one. So if you really appreciate my content, I do have a Patreon. I may have deleted it from my comment section, but listen, I love everybody's support. It's hard to keep up with this content from a cost standpoint to deliver high quality content. I'm doing my very best, and I appreciate everybody's support in the process. If you do like my content and you want to see it improve and you appreciate the effort I'm putting into it, it would go a really long way if you could help contribute a little bit of money, even like $2 or $3 over Patreon would go a really long way. Believe me, I get, like I said, pennies on the dollar for my YouTube channel. I've got maybe 3,000 subscribers, so I really appreciate your support. Okay, so here now we're turning left. It negotiates here with the stop sign with the other traffic. It sees that car turning left. I would have gone already. The car creeps up behind me. Thankfully, it goes here. I did not have to intervene or do anything because that car came up at the last minute. If somebody was there the whole time behind me, I probably would have stepped on it a lot sooner. And coming up here to the stop sign, nobody behind us. We do have some pedestrians there on the left. They end up showing up on the screen. It's hard to see, but they did get displayed. Going through this neighborhood area. And with this neighborhood area, there's a lot of cars parked on the side of the road. And you can see this other car here on the right. My car saw them the whole time. It didn't hesitate. I was a little bit nervous because the angle from the driver's position didn't show the car very well, and I think they may have been blocked as well, but the car did the right thing. There were no issues there. Very pleased with that. Turning left here, and again, I'm just always impressed in these neighborhood areas. This is one of the areas where I just really have a lot of appreciation for how far this technology has come. Like, look at this car coming here. It ever so slightly gets over for them. Does a really nice job there. And I think in other videos, especially in California, where you have extremely narrow roads, you can watch those videos and it's just absolutely fascinating. We don't have so many roads like that here in the suburbs of Illinois, outside of Chicago. So I can't really replicate some of those tests. But certainly in areas like this where you have these wide roads with kind of fast moving traffic, this is what fascinates me a lot. So this is an unprotected left, and this is why I rerouted to my home here. And you can see here there's the creep zone showing up in the middle. It's waiting very appropriately for that one car to go. And it comes here, and rather than waiting in the creep zone, it knew right away that it was appropriate to go, and it went for it. And again, I was really nervous with my GoPro because that's extra weight just hanging out on that pole, which is about 15 feet long. And it did a decent job. It hung on. I was watching it very closely, nervous. It's a new setup for me, so I don't know how stable it is. So I'm keeping a close eye on it. But here I reroute because I don't really want to go to my home. I delete out my home and I dial in the Wendy's. So I'm headed to Wendy's next, and then from there over to the Walgreens. So if you are familiar with Hoffman Estates, Schaumburg area, you'll know these areas. I'm at the Trip Hand Center, which is a ice rink. My daughters have taken skate lessons there. But this left turn, there's nobody behind me. I allow it to slow down a little bit, but then somebody does come up, and I do have to take over. So I disengage here. It slows down, and it doesn't put on its turn signal, and it just gets really awkward. So I force it manually to get over here, and I wouldn't be doing a U-turn here. I would have probably turned earlier at that light rather than doing it right there. Not really the best position. Yeah, at this intersection here is where I would have turned around. So now that it's back on, I allow it to get over to the left lane, and then it's going to be turning left onto Volid Drive. And this is another decision that I probably would not make on my own to get to Wendy's. I would just continue going straight. But I allow the GPS or the Google Maps to kind of take me where it thinks there needs to go. And as it comes in here, I do realize that I was driving on Higgins, and we actually need to be on Gulf. So that's when I realized that it was the right decision to come into this area. So I move over the visualization, and that's another challenge with the visualization overlays, is that when you are in that split screen mode, that visualization would change. You'd have to overlay it differently. Another challenge with the overlay, if I were to implement an augmented reality style, which again I'm really striving for, and it was the whole reason for me getting my new selfie stick, which is massive, and just it has like 5 suction cups, and it's really robust. I don't know how it will hold up over time, but my whole goal here is to be able to superimpose the visualization from my HDMI output, which also, by the way, was not cheap. It was like $1,200 or $1,300 to purchase this HDMI output from Adam Urban, which is Aimful Wandering on X or Twitter. And if you are interested in getting that content yourself, you can always contact him. But this screen visualizations, I would love to do a kind of overlay, and that would give the augmented reality style. which would be really cool. So coming up here, we're going to be turning left, and the left turn signal is on, and we're waiting at this light. So the light takes a little while. I'll fast forward through this. You can see a car comes up behind me, and then we're going to immediately be getting into the far right lane to turn right into Wendy's. All right, the car takes off. It does a really nice job here. Gets over all the way. There was a car behind me, and they end up getting into the other lane. Actually, no, they're right there. They stay behind me. You don't see it on the screen, but they are behind me. And then they end up going straight there. I turn right, and look at this. The car gets stuck here, thinking that car is an obstacle, and I don't know why it's positioning itself to go toward that car. So I give it some time. Turns out there's somebody inside of that car, and they start looking at me, wondering what's going on. So the car comes through here, and in tests before, it will actually go through the drive-through. It's one of the cool things about this particular destination. So I come up here, and there's quite a few people. The car slows down for them, and you'll see it actually swerves to the right to avoid these people. So somehow it thinks it can get around them to the right. And then it needs to go left there. You can see the drive-through window on the left. Now someone comes up behind me in the process here. And my car right here now turns on the left turn signal and really throws off this person behind me. So they're like, what is this guy doing? So I had to disengage here. It got really awkward. They rolled down their window and thankfully weren't, giving me the bird, but they were really confused. Like, what is going on? What are you doing? Are you crazy? It was really, really disappointing. I turn it back on here. I allow it to go through this drive-through. It always makes me extremely nervous with the curb here, but usually, see right there, I always get nervous. It gets awfully close to the curb. It's never hit the curb here, but it always gets really close. And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to order? Because I wasn't intending on getting any fast food at this point. So I decided to disengage, and since there's absolutely nobody behind me, I jet out of here in reverse and get out of the drive-thru so that I can carry on to the Walgreens final destination. All right, we are dialed in, and I turn beta back on. Comes through here pretty quickly, slows down a little bit, and then it needs to get all the way over to the left into the left turn lane. I was really impressed with how it did this quickly enough. In previous versions, it would never have been able to do that. It's greatly improved its ability to get over multiple lanes of traffic in a very short distance. So I'm very happy with that. That never would have been possible before. So when it comes to that particular scenario, that is definitely a big improvement. I would say other significant big improvements would be safety around pedestrians. I feel like it's a lot safer than it used to be. Also, I would say when it goes through a turn, a lot of times it will accelerate a lot quicker than it used to. That feels a lot more natural. Also, kind of in-lane movements have been improved. Smoothness has been improved. But in general, you still have the same types of issues that crop up. So in particular, U-turns, no turn on red signs, awkward behavior around pedestrians in busy environments, and especially not taking action quickly enough at four-way stops and in intersections in busy urban environments. Those situations have still presented a lot of issues for me. It needs to get over to the right. You can see that car there turned blue, and now the lane indicates. Gets over, and then it's actually having me take another route, like further beyond the Walgreens. So I do have to take over to pull over here. It's just way easier and faster to go this way. I'm not sure why it was having me go further in order to get into the parking lot. But yeah, I take over to get into the parking lot manually. So overall, I would say that Beta still has a lot of issues. Definitely cannot drive autonomously, without a driver in the driver's seat. A lot of work still to be done. I'm looking forward to the next version, but I'm not really expecting it to be a significant improvement. One thing that continues to bother me is the fact that Elon Musk will tweet or say things about how much it's improved significantly and how it's way better, and it really isn't. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate your support. As always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.